I think it's funny if you think about, like, all these thoughts that pop into your head, they just happen. There's, like, no way to stop any of them, any of those, like, judgments that come up, like, there's that natural boom, like, instinct comes in, and then whatever influences that happened before that led you to that place, they're in there no matter what you do. You could fight it as much as you want. You can say that you wanna be more accepting, but you're still gonna have those thoughts that come in.
Yeah,
So it's, like, more about how you handle those thoughts when they come through. So it's like, "Oh, wow, like, yeah, I'm feeling like this person's a jerk right now, but I'm just gonna accept it and move on," kind of thing, which
yeah,
is easier said than done, of course, but I do think that that's, like, the turning point for me. Like, I used to always try to stop the thought, and that is, like, impossible.
Yeah,
yeah,
because you didn't put it
You
there.
Yeah, and we were
yeah,
talking at the beginning of all this about, like, unraveling ourselves, like, becoming the uncarved block, like, unfortunately, like, we're not gonna be able to go back to a little baby that doesn't know anything and just start fresh again, blank slate, like, at least in this life.
yeah.
Once
As
once
much as we
carved, you're
try.
carved.
You feel like
Yeah,
that's a
like
game though. I feel if I just accept that, you know what, you can be a jerk. And you know what, I can also not choose to not be a jerk. But there's nothing wrong in you being a jerk. And it almost become like a police thief kind of chase, which makes it fun, I guess, in a way. Oh, the thief is gonna steal
yeah.
and the cops is there to like prevent this guy from stealing, and it's like a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's, like, so funny because I always think about this too, where I'm so in my head all the time about, like, what I'm doing, how I'm portraying myself. Am I being professional? Um,
Yeah.
like, I'll do some, like, public speaking sometimes for work, and I'm like, "Oh boy," like, I'm so worried about what everyone's gonna think, and it's like, when you think about it, everyone's very similar, and they're thinking about themselves and the
Yeah.
portrayal of themselves or, like, so we are all the same at the end of the day. And I think back in the chapter too, like just talking about like oneness, all of us can help lead you towards that acceptance. Cause if we're all that similar, then we're all struggling with the same thing. And then it's like, well, what's the struggle for if we all feel the same way? Like, what's there to feel guilty for? What's there to judge? Cause we
Yeah.
are all the same, kind of,
Yeah.
in a sense. It sounds so easy, right? When you say it out loud like
I feel
Oh
it is
yeah.
very
When
easy to like accept any one side of the duality. I feel it's easy to accept, you know what, I'm not a jerk or I am a jerk. But it's very hard to
Yeah.
accept both because it's so contradicting.
Well, I
Uh,
loved this line. I actually wrote it down, and
okay.
it was something, and it went further along, and it was just talking about how you can't have one thing without the other, and like everything kind of has its purpose. And it was saying how like the sun would not be light without the eyes, and um, I don't have all the other pieces written down, but it was just like you can't have all these the great things without the bad things. You can't have all these like good traits without bad traits. It's just like it is true how it's almost like there's a purpose for everything. But we try so hard to like define and control and just fit into those boxes again that's when things get all muddled and it gets harder to manage and the anxiety piece trying to prevent nature from happening.
That's yeah.
And it's like at the end of the day, even if I feel like I did a good job and I was professional and I, did what I was supposed to and I made someone feel good, there's still like another thing that happened that I'm like, "Oh, maybe that wasn't so great," or maybe they took this one word the wrong way and I offended them somehow. It's like
Yeah.
it's never ending. So until you just accept that, yeah, sometimes someone's gonna take something the wrong way, or sometimes somebody's gonna think you're a jerk, or then you can live more free.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I think some of
but
this comes from what the question that gets put on us is like where do your thoughts come from? I mean, this chapter says your thoughts grow from a brain, like grass in a field, and we all feel no attachment to grass growing. It just happens. You know,
Yeah.
we recognize that as an automatic, completely just thing that happens. But our thoughts, we take a lot more ownership for and responsibility for, and you know, to a degree. I mean, just like you communicated, Nina. You like you didn't have like you have thoughts, you know, that you try to push away, but you didn't put that thought there. It just happened.
Mhm.
You know, it's a separate event in some way, and it's a really big challenge to stop something that you never even started.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, I've read about people who've had intrusive thoughts that, like, sometimes moms after when they have postpartum depression, they'll have these intrusive thoughts of like wanting to kill their baby, or like, these things
My
that,
God.
yeah, like just scary, scary thoughts, but it's like the brain's way of like filling time, basically. It's like, really, it's like, oh well, let me rile her up a little bit, and
Yeah.
um
Damn.
it doesn't inherently mean that that's what that person believes, and a lot of times it is just like a mental health issue, but it just goes to show that you can have thoughts, but it what really matters is like how you react to that thought. It's like, this thought makes me uncomfortable, so I'm not going to act on that, and I'm going to move forward. Instead I think we just like will sit on them for so long.
And
You
like
know,
try
I
to
feel
think
like
your way
any
out
if
of
oh, I'm sorry, Ray, what were you saying?
it. I'm gonna say I feel like the instinct is to when you're having thoughts you don't like is to think your way out of it, right? Is
Yeah.
is like trying to use a fire to burn a fire.
Put out a fire.
Yeah, it spirals you further.
Yeah. I feel you know, okay, so I'm coming back to this, right? But I'm doing like this meditation thing, the thing where you call becoming aware of the awareness. Yeah. I think you would be aware.
Oh,
I think you would know this, Dave. It's like you become so there are things that's happening, right? And there's this awareness that is perceiving it, and you do like this meditation where you become conscious of this awareness. And when you
that's the most powerful meditation I've ever done. I'll just throw that out there. That's
really,
good stuff. Oh
man,
yeah.
yeah. So when I was doing that, right? Uh, so there is thoughts, everything, and there is me being aware of the thoughts, and then there is me being aware of that awareness. Yeah, being aware of the thoughts. Okay, okay. What's funny is most of the thoughts that I start. Oh yeah, I should feel like this. I should pa 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 pa. It is like it didn't feel like me. I didn't feel I was the thoughts. I feel like there was like a small disconnect where you're aware of it's like you're the guy perceiving the thoughts, but the thoughts are not you, because if the thoughts are you, how would
Mm.
you perceive it? But I feel like you're rather something that's aware of those thoughts. And I feel like that identity thinking becomes very I kind of like stopped. I did it like twice or thrice, then I stopped because I started contemplating like w- what I what am I really then. I'm getting
Yeah.
existential now.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
on a natural state, a normal no, when I'm in a normal state, I guess any thought I think, oh yeah, this thought is me. Oh yeah, I have anxiety, I'm a guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes sense. But when you
That's
like when you become aware of this awareness, and you become this thing that's becoming conscious of the thoughts and stuff, then you have to like question, like, okay, what the fuck am I then? Am I really these thoughts? I don't know, shit.
that's so funny that you said that, because when I started dealing with anxiety, I used to call it A for myself, because I was like, I will not identify as anxiety. So it's A, and it's like a person that is like on my shoulder that is sitting there like whispering in my ear all the time, making me uncomfortable. And I'm just gonna tell it to back off. And like thinking of it like that, and it being like, that's
It's
not
actually
who I
really nice.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not who I am. made me feel not guilty about the anxiety piece, because I used to always like beat myself up over like, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way, or like, this makes no sense and it's hurtful. And why can't I just be like normal, whatever normal is, you know?
Yeah.
But when I assigned it its own identity and I was like, you are not really a part of me, you're like your own thing, it took the judgment and the guilt out of all of it, where I was like, okay, like this isn't me, this is just anxiety.
Damn, that's actually
So
really good.
yeah, and it's like a way, I mean, you could do that with any emotion even, which I think it's so cool. Like, I don't know, back to Disney movies, but that movie Inside Out
Oh yeah.
is about all the emotions, and they basically have their own person, like they're their own personalities based on these emotions. And it's really helpful to think about it like that, at least it was for me, because then it's not you, you know? Like I can look at anger and not feel like I'm this angry, awful thing. It's just this little thing on my shoulder or whatever, you know? It's not really like a true reflection of myself. So that
Yeah.
helped me like get through some tough times where I was like beating myself up, which just is like that cycle
Yeah.
where you're just constantly like, this is me. And it's
Yeah.
hard to get out of that hole. But that's what that just reminded me of when you were talking about the identity piece.
That's a therapy technique, by the
Really?
way. That's so interesting that you just naturally fell into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like had started therapy when I was young, but then stopped for a long time. And then have since gone back because I think everybody should. I think it's a really nice way to just get things out of your head. But
So not interesting. There's
but yeah,
actually
it was,
yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say that it was kind of like I had to find a survival like like a way to survive, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could find myself like getting lost in it, and I didn't like that feeling. So I was like, well, how can I not sit in this feeling? And that was the way that I kind of came around to it. I don't know, it's been helpful, but I'm sure it was from all the bits and pieces from a lot of different things that I've heard around from
No, it's interesting
therapy
you
and
say
not
that
therapy.
because I came across another thing. There's a guy I'm
Mhm.
trying to research now called Neville Goddard or something like that. Yeah. And he has this thing
Mhm.
where he says, oh, isn't it wonderful meditation? Yeah. Where you just keep repeating, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful this happened? Isn't it wonderful that happened? Pa, 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 pa. You know?
Mhm.
And it's like, I do know for a fact when I am positive, things flow more easier. Like the Wu Wei thing happens more effortlessly. Yeah. Nothing feels
Mhm.
like a burden anymore. But I also know that when I'm experiencing the negative emotions, I do get like kind of stuck a little bit. It's very hard to process the world. Everything like goes in that direction, which you don't want it to go. But for some reason, I don't know. It it just made I don't know why. I, there's this thing where I don't know whether you experience it or not. Where it's like, oh, if I figure this out, anxiety, or if I find the root of this anxiety,
Mhm.
I can like fix it. Boom, solve the mystery. But it never fixes, it's just better than what this is not me. Yeah, isn't this wonderful
Uh-huh.
that I get to do this and just keep doing that and just feel good and then yeah. But this aspect of me which just says that okay, are you like ignoring the problem?
Well, the funny thing about that, I always think about panic attacks, for example. And I consider myself like, I mean, I'm not a scientist by any means, but I have some kind of knowledge of like,
Yeah,
all right, well, how many trials does it take to prove a point, basically? So panic attacks, it's like every time you feel like you're gonna die, like you're like, this is it, I'm done. Like the heart attack's coming, and this, say my goodbyes, right? But it's like no matter how many times I have one and I survive, I like always, anytime it pops up again, it's like, nope, this is it. Now this time is the the one time that it's gonna happen. So like
Yeah.
when that logic got thrown out the window for me was when I started laughing at it, because I'm like, I'm a logical person. I feel like in other ways. So this makes no sense for me to be this worried about that piece. And yeah, and I think that's like when you're thinking about anxiety in this like logical sense, and you're trying to find that, you know, the cause and effect of anxiety for yourself. There's so many times where I would be sitting there for days trying to figure out why I'm feeling a certain way, and there would be no reason. And that's what was kind of proving to me that sometimes you're just going to feel things and it's not going to have that piece attached to it. And no matter how hard you try to prevent it from happening, it's going to happen again. And once I let go of like, there's things I can do that, eat right, exercise, all that kind of stuff. Like, I've recognized that there's some simple, tangible things that I could do to like feel a little bit better. But, there's always going to be that day that I'm like, I'm having a panic attack for no reason. And that's when I start laughing because I'm like, how funny is this? Right? Like it has no purpose. It's just there. And I'm like, how ridiculous is that? And I end up just starting to find it a little bit funny. And that's what's kind of like helped me too, is just so many times of I can't find a reason why, so why am I going to waste my energy on trying to find that reason? Instead, I should just focus on I feel this way right now. Maybe I'll just go for a walk without any expectation for it to make me feel better, but just move on with the day.
You know what's funny? When you're in the
Yeah.
positive state of mind, you do find the reason. It just comes to you. Oh, this person said this and I didn't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes when you're too in yourself and you start talking to somebody else about it, then you realize,
Yeah.
like I've had conversations and then people are like, oh, well, you've been having a really stressful week. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because we are the hardest on ourselves. That's true. But
there was a girl at the meditation retreat I went to who shared a practice she did with difficult emotions. Pretty skillful. She said something along the lines of, anytime she would eat, she would like imagine a teddy bear that represented that emotion. When that emotion came, the teddy bear, and that, she was in that space, she would just sort of care for it.
You were saying, I couldn't quite hear you. Like the teddy bears, she gave the emotion to the teddy bear.
Well, no, it's like the teddy bear represents the emotion. So as the teddy bear, and then as long as it's there, you care for it. This idea that some famous person said, like, whatever arises in your mind, you welcome your as guest for tea.
Can you repeat that, Rafe? What was the meditation exactly? And can you come a little bit closer to the microphone?
Okay, I'm in phone mode now.
Oh, whoa, that's so different.
Yeah. Okay.
He's surfaced. He's not underwater anymore.
Yeah.
It's so weird that the speaker doesn't work. I don't want to have to hold my phone to my ear, but okay. Yeah, so this girl was practicing with difficult emotions, right? And as they were arising, she would imagine them as being teddy bears that would come to her as these emotions would have. So, there's a teddy bear for sadness and a teddy bear for anger or guilt, whatever. And so she would identify it and like care for this teddy bear as long as it was present, and then be with it until it leaves. Is similar to what a famous person said, that like whatever arises in your mind, you welcome into your awareness the same way you would a guest into your house. For I think the real subtle trick to opening to something is that you have to open it to it as if it would be there forever. And the real subtle miss there is opening to it so that you can get rid of it, because you're still holding on a bit. So as soon as you can open to it and be like, the world is like this emotion present, and get curious and investigate, be with it as if it'll stay. Hard. You're sad. You don't want to be sad. That's when you release into that space where it's allowed to.
Yep.
I also have a hard stop at 12, so I might need to start saying my goodbyes.
Okay.
Yeah, I do as well. I always hate to, but you know, that's
Yeah.
life.
There to it.
All
Yeah.
things that start have to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Catch next week. But yeah, the last segment was really good. Like, yeah, it's really interesting. That thing that you said, you have to like invite everything as if it's like a guest, and as if the guest is not gonna leave. Well, they're gonna stay maybe for a long time. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a very
I
good
would-
note, Rave.
I wish I could
Mhm.
remember who said that. I think it's some type of poet. I forget.
Rave's like slowly becoming our like poet source,
Yeah.
poem source.
I know.
He
I
ended
asked
last
him.
week.
Yeah.
I was like, how did you come up with all this stuff?
Last
Because-
week was Rumi, right? This week is
Last week was.
yeah.
Let me look real quick. Maybe.
I mean, there's a lot to say about that. It's just, I mean, that's full release of any of like wanting or having must for a different state.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like it's said so much is like once you let go of controlling, you've got it. Like
Yeah.
it's the weird like paradox nature of control.
Oh
It's
my-
like once
yeah.
once you completely released it is exactly where you find it.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's so bizarre.
Well, this was great.
Yep.
Yes.
This one
Um,
deal- can you guys still hear me? I'm on speaker now.
I can
Yeah.
hear you.
All right. So keeping in the theme of closing with poems, this one deals with joy. Instead, I don't know where the invite your sorrows into your house comes, but from William Blake. He who binds himself to a joy does the winged life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise.
Wow.
I'm liking
is
this.
also-
I'm liking this routine of
Yeah.
Rave closing out the poem.
Yeah. Close out with the poem, Rave. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll
No
make
pressure.
it more
No pressure.
communal now. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, everyone else can bring poems too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I like
yeah.
that.
You read poems as if you never have to read poems. Let go of the control, and boom, every week we'll have a poem.
Awesome. Well, great
Alright
talk,
then. Yep.
everyone.
Guess.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
And then next
too.
week is a chapter about
Wu-Wei.
Wu Wei, so I'm sure we'll have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, there you go. We don't even have to like time ourselves. We just show up the right place, the right time. Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Alright, see you
Well,
guys. Bye.
have a good weekend, everyone. Have a good week.
Yep.
too.
You
Yep.
too.
Bye.
All right,
Bye.
See ya.